All right, welcome to this video. Now what we're going to talk about here is profitability. Analysis of profits is an important part of farm financial management and analysis. So I want to go through the three key areas that we have in this and then go through some examples to maybe help. Okay, so let's take a look at the first one. Well, the idea about profitability is that it's really about our bottom line. So the concept of our bottom line is really kind of the focus, and these ratios can kind of help us get a picture of that bottom line. Now, bottom line sometimes is just what is your net income, but that's really not the right way to probably look at that. Bottom line is going to be more about profitability, and that's going to involve a ratio. So right away, you're going to get down to the first one, which is return on assets. Again, you've got work that goes over this, but ROA is this concept of our business has income, and that varies because income's not always just by itself. We need to adjust it, and then it also may vary according to time. So what we'll do is we'll take net farm income and we'll try to kind of compare it maybe to 17 to 18. But these important points can be ratioed, would really be the way to look at it, and that's what this is. So return on assets is just a ratio. Net farm income actually needs to be adjusted though. So the net income of our business plus we add interest expense back, and we also take away any opportunity cost of unpaid labor. Now, why are we adding interest back? Well, that's because if we're going to look at how valuable our assets are, if we borrowed the money or didn't borrow the money, we don't want that to affect us. So interest expense is going to be added back to take the borrowing out. Opportunity cost of labor is going to be deducted because maybe we pay our labor and then another business does not pay. So we adjust net income and then we divide it by our total assets. So I have an example for you. So let's go through that. Net farm income, $209 grand. Opportunity cost is $45. We're not paying ourselves. Interest expense is $18 and assets are $650,000. So the question is, so how are we doing on the assets that we own? And that's what this is going to answer for us. So what I do is take the $209,000 of income, deduct the $45,000 of opportunity cost of labor that's not paid, add back the $18,000 to take borrowing out, divide it by our assets of $650,000, and we get 28%. Now the question is that good or bad? Well, higher the better. And the choices are, I guess the answers are, is what does that compare to what I could do with my money? So all the assets I own, I paid for in some way or borrowed. I could have taken that money and put it into the market or done something else. So the question is 28%. Is that good or bad? It really depends on your risk and other factors. But that's what we're doing with our assets. They're earning us 28% back. That's what ROA does. All right, let's go to the next one, ROE, so return on equity. So when we're looking at return on equity, again, ROE, that is going to be taking our asset values and our income, or shouldn't say assets, our income value, and we're going to adjust it. Now, this time borrowing's not part of that. In fact, I made a mistake there, so it's ROE. So let me fix that. We aren't borrowing our assets, our equity, that's either what we had investors give us or we earned. So ROE is just net income, and we do want to deduct the unpaid labor because that may not be part of the business here. So I want to make sure I deduct that. That's the adjusted net income, and then we're going to divide it by equity, and that's going to give us a ratio. So what do we know? We know $209,000. We know opportunity cost of $45,000, and then we know equity of $45,000. That came from our balance sheet, and then we plug that in. So ROE 209 minus the 45. This time we have equity of $450,000. That's going to be a 0.36, or better displayed as 36%. So once again, the question is that good or bad? Well, that means that the money we've previously earned plus what people have invested is earning us 36%. Could we do better with our money? Could our investors do better with their money? That's the question. And in this case, I think 36% is pretty good. So in our example, that would be considered high. If you had an alternative that could earn 50%, then you would wonder about why you're doing what you're doing. So to back up, return on equity and return on assets are really kind of a percent of earnings of our income for every dollar of assets that we have. So that's kind of the little highlight I'm highlighting for you here. Return on equity, it's the adjusted earnings for every $1 of equity we have. And so those are what those ratios mean. All right, there's another ratio to go over, and that's called operating profit margin. Operating profit margin, sometimes identified as OPM. Sometimes it's also identified as earning before interest and taxes. And so EBIT is sometimes a term that's used. But all of this is very similar. It's the same concept. It's that we've got net income. And our net income needs to be adjusted again. Borrowing shouldn't hurt us, so let's add back interest expense. Taxes shouldn't be part of that. That depends on what happens with our tax law. And then opportunity cost of unpaid management, meaning we don't really pay our salaries. We own all the assets, so we're earning it ourselves. So we should deduct that. And once we do, divide it by gross sales. The question is, what percent of our gross sales are we keeping? What percent remains as profit? That's an important factor. It kind of factors in efficiency, cost, sales all together, and it's a common calculation. So let's look at an example. $209,000, $18,000 of interest added back, $45,000 deducted, $690,000 is what our sales would have been. That's a 0.26, 26% of sales we are keeping in bottom line profit. How does that compare? The S&P 500 is about 11%. The higher, the better. That's really the idea here in operating profit margin.